X. So this is unit number 2, the processes. So we'll begin with the concept of process. Then we'll see different algorithms used to schedule the processes. What are different operations that can be performed on processes. Then we'll see few examples of interprocess communication. It is just overview because we have a separate unit on it. Few examples of IPC, and then client server systems, typically communication in that through the socket programming. So let us start with the process. The most important part is we need to differentiate between what the program is and what the process is, or rather even tasks, jobs, so many terminologies are used for that. So let us make it very simple. Operating system executes a variety of programs. Again, I already mentioned program. For operating system, it is executable file, executable code. So operating system executes a variety of programs. Few may be running in background, few may be interactive, few may have a graphical user interface, others may have text-based user interface, something. Even there are processes called as daemon processes. They are running in background and they are providing some sort of service to the users. So here need to understand operating system is not executing a similar kind of thing. A variety of programs are there, and this is called as jobs in case of batch operating system. Okay, so for example, if I have 10 different programs to execute and that are submitted in a batch, now here each and every program is called as job. That happens in batch operating system where we have a separate dedicated job monitor also. The second part is the similar kind of stuff is called as task or user program in time shared system. So now see, operating system is at both the places, in batch system also, in time sharing also. But whatever the task given, whatever the things that needs to be executed by operating system, batch OS call them as jobs, whereas time shared systems they call it as a tasks. Okay, so anyways, you can use this job and process word almost interchangeably. Job is basically the process. The same thing you can say the task. No issues. Okay. Now we need to define what the process is. So process is defined as it is a program in execution. Here the most important word is in execution. Okay, because this one in execution. Reason is, as I mentioned, program is executable file. Yes, executable file is also available on hard disk, but we never call that as process. That is just a program. But when that program is in execution, then and then only we call it as a process. And process execution usually progress in sequential manner. So it is something like we have very, if we go from the core part, it starts with instruction. So the processor, whatever your processor is, the i3, i5, 885, 886, whatever the processor is there, it has the capability of executing instructions. Now set of instruction can perform some meaningful task. Okay, that now that stepwise part is important, and that steps collected together we call it as an algorithm, and if that algorithm is implemented we call it as a program. Even program can have different parts, small modules like the procedures, or in C language we call it as functions. right? So that is the organization of program that also definitely we'll see. But the thing is, if we have sequence of instructions, then a program execution starts with first instruction in that, then after finishing it, it moves to next. After finishing second, it moves to third. After finishing third, it moves to fourth, so on and so forth. So execution is in sequential fashion, right? Now, multiple parts of program, and again, don't think of program is your source code here. But for understanding, yes, I'll give examples from the source code, no doubt. But in executable file also, your program have multiple parts in it. So typically it is divided in four parts. So let us see what is that. Very first and foremost thing is the program code. You assume something like let us consider very simple example. You have one variable called as int a, and there is some global variable also, and we want to add the value of global variable to the my variable, which is local one. Okay, and maybe for that purpose I'm writing some sort of function, and maybe I'm making use of some sort of pointer where I need to allocate memory. Okay, so what I'll do is uh, let me write one small code there. So for which let me share my, just a minute. I'll I'll open one editor and I'll share it. Let me write. Fine. So let me share my screen. Is it visible, everybody? Yes, fine. So think of this is a C language. So let me write something like hash include something like stdio.h. Then I have something called as say constant. Const int data is equal to 5. I stored something there. And then there is one function, let us call it as a fun. And what it does is I am passing some variable v to it. And what it does is simply return the v plus data, because data is global. It is available to my function also. So that is the reason I have not passed it as parameter to my function. And the program execution starts with main. So what I'll do is, suppose let me have some pointer p and some variable a whose value is 10. And what I want to do is I want to store value at p, which is equal to I'm just calling the function, and I'm passing the value of a, which is local variable of main. Now actually we cannot do this. Reason behind this is we have not allocated memory here. So what I'll do is, first of all, let me allocate memory for p. So p is equal to malloc, say size of int. Okay. Anyways, for malloc we need to include maybe stdlib standard library dot h, something like this. Now think of this as a program. Now what this program does is I have one constant, rather I can say this is a global variable, not variable, constant. But anyways, even though I remove this const part, doesn't matter. This is now global variable. This is one function. Then this is program execution starts from here. This is one pointer. This is one local variable. And here I am allocating memory. And here what I'm doing is call the function and assign result to this result to the pointer. That is the reason I use star p there. Anyways, I am not doing any memory checking here. Right. Now we need to understand data, fun, a, something return value, malloc, right? Now a needs some memory, p needs some memory, data needs some memory. Even this v is also needs some memory, because that is the way how we can store the different values in the memory, right? Is it clear? First upon, okay, because I'm going to stop the sharing and then again I'll go back to presentation, and then now I'll explain each and every part from that slide. Okay, so let me stop sharing this. Fine. Now my presentation is visible now. Fine, fine. So now let us go here. The very first part is the program code is called as the text section. Now, for example, in the function fun, what I did is whatever the variable I passed plus the global variable. So basically I did addition there. And in order to do addition, there are definitely some instructions, maybe loading the value of that local variable somewhere, then loading the value of global variable, maybe in the accumulator, and then executing add, and then again we are returning it. So maybe we need to store it at some address, something like that. So whatever these instructions are there, this is called as the text section. So let me use some different color. This is the text section, right? Code. So whatever code is nothing but your instructions. Okay. So program code is the instructions. That is as simple as like that. Next thing is current activity, including PC, program counter, and processor registers. Now, this is also the part of your process, though it is stored somewhere. Now, why I am saying current activity? Because reason is very simple. Right now, I am executing which function, whether it is fun or main. Depending upon that, v is accessible or not accessible, because I mentioned v as a parameter to fun, so it will be only accessible in function fun, not in main function. All that stuff need to be managed by your process. And why program counter is important? Because from main, whenever we are switching from main to the function fun, and whenever we come back, we should continue from the next instruction after the function call. So in order to do so, we need to store that information somewhere. Okay. And processor register. So whatever the state of processor registers, if you have studied 885, 886, AX, BX, CX, DX, SIDI, okay, SP. So all those registers, different processor registers are there, and we need to maintain the state of that. So whenever we are switching from say one function to other function, that will be helpful. So that is also part of our program. Next one is the stack. Now the memory required by our program is divided in four. First one I mentioned here, it is the text section. This is one. Second part is the stack. This is the second thing, where stack is used to contain the temporary data. Now what are the temporary data? Now they are also mentioned there. Function parameters. So from main, I am passing value of A. So that will be held by the variable V. So formal parameter I use V in previous example, right? So that V, yes, that is a parameter, function parameter that is stored on the stack. Return address. So whenever we are returning, so whatever the value we are returning, that must be stored not in the function but in the main, because that value is available in the main. That is the reason the return address is also on stack, because that is also temporary. Once that is copied to the pointer P, absolutely no problem. Okay, and that is the reason I mentioned stack. It contains temporary data for some while, for some amount of time. Okay, so return addresses are also there. Local variables. So if you declare, say for example, in a main, I declared two local variables. One is pointer variable A and another, sorry, pointer variable P and local variable A. Now they are local variables to main function. So they are also available on stack. Only exception for this is the static variables, because static variables are stored on heap. Anyways, we'll see heap later on. So stack. So stack is mainly used whenever we are switching from one function to the next. On stack, we push the frames. Okay. So whenever you're done with function fun, that is fun, that frame will be removed and frame for main function will be popped from the stack, and then my program continues with the main. That is how it works. Anyways, we'll see later on the switching between that. Next important part is the data section, which contains the global variables. That is the reason I selected one global variable in my program, that is the data. So I declared outside of all the functions. Even interestingly, if you observe that, how I declared it is int data is equal to, what is the value I given? I guess I given 5. Whatever the value I have given there, say a value is 5. Okay. So question is, what is 5 then? Int data is equal to 5, or data is assigned with 5. My question is, what is 5? Or anybody wish to give answer for that? What is 5? Let me check chat. If anybody is there on chat. int, let me put that in the message also. Int data is equal to 5, because I declared this part outside of any function. Data is a global variable, right? Now that is fine. My question is, what is 5? So let me tell you, 5 is also called as data. Only thing is, this is literals. Even when you say printf hello world, in double quote we put, so that string itself is also data. Only thing is, that is a string literal, and such literals are also stored in the data section. So that is the third part of the memory. First, I mentioned text section where actual instructions are stored. Second one is stack. So this memory is used for containing temporary data like function parameters, local variables, return addresses, whenever you are switching from one function to next function. So that is a stack. Third one is data. So whatever the variables, but now which variables? Not local variables. The global variables, the literal strings, literal values, all that stuff. So global part will be available in the data section. And lastly, there is something called as heap. Those who gone through 885, 886, we have something called as a code segment, data segment, stack segment, and extra segment. So this extra segment is nothing but heap, which is utilized to contain the memory required dynamically or runtime by my process, and that is the what malloc memory is there. So when I say int star p, maybe p is available on the stack, p itself is available on the stack, but the space to which it is pointing will be available in the heap. Okay, so that is a heap. So extra memory that is required by our process is called as a heap. So there are four sections of memory. I just summarize it: text, stack, data, and heap. And the second point which I mentioned there, current activity including program counter, this one, program counter, this will be available in PCB. Anyways, that we'll discuss. Any doubt in this? Any doubt in this? Yes? Fine. So let us continue. Now, on this slide, we'll see the difference between the program and the process. The very first difference is program is passive. It is stored on disk, and processor never know about disk. Processor just know about the primary memory, that is your RAM, and your executable file is stored on disk. That is a program. Whereas process is active. Okay, so this passive entity will be loaded into the memory. Anyways, who loads that is the loader. Okay, so loader loads it, and once it is loaded into the memory, then it becomes process. So that passive entity becomes active. So program is passive, process is active. Program is on disk, process is in memory. Okay. Now, when loader is activated, that is again important thing. Okay, it's very simple thing. For example, it all depends on what kind of UI you have. If it is a graphical user interface, and suppose there is an executable file for say calculator, and if you double click on it, the calculator program will be displayed in front of you. So that means it is executed. Now it is started. Process becomes. In another way, like for example, whenever we fire command, maybe from the run prompt, or maybe from the terminal, maybe from the shell, depending upon operating system, whenever you fire the command, yes, loader will be activated, that executable file will be loaded, and then program becomes process. Now the next important thing is one program can be several processes. Now this is important. One program, that means there is only one copy of executable file, but we can have multiple processes of that. Say for example, say terminal is the program available there. If you open the terminal 5 times, it creates 5 separate processes. Okay, so if you execute maybe by single user or maybe by multiple user, if the same program is executed multiple times, yes, there is a sharing. It can share the text part, text region, but single program may have several processes. Okay, so executing the same program, say for example, you have, think of something like you are using VIM. Okay, so I opened one terminal and I given something like VIM server.c. I opened another terminal and I given VIM client.c. So at both the places I am executing VIM. So VIM is what? Is a text editor. That is the editor. So that doesn't mean we have two copies of VIM. Yes, there is a single copy on the disk and two copies maybe there in the RAM. That is the meaning. One program can be several processes, right? Let us move to next. This is how the memory is organized. For example, process is having some limited memory, and that limit is between 0 to max. So from 0 to max, depending upon the size of the executable file. Now this is the text region. Here we have the code or the instructions. Here there is a data region where we have global variables, literals. So data will be available here. Then for data there is a fixed boundary. This much amount of is required for data process. For text, yes, there is a fixed boundary. Okay, from this 0 to some value, and we are at runtime we are never modifying it. But the size of stack and size of heap is changing dynamically. Why? Maybe heap need to be increased in case if you use malloc, and it will be decreased in case when you say free, release the memory. Similarly, whenever you are making call to functions, stack will be increased. Whenever you are returning from function, maybe value of stack is decreased. That is the reason heap part and stack part both will share whatever total memory is there. So it is like this. So there is no specific boundary for stack and heap. So this complete part will be shared by now two ends. From one end stack will start and from other end heap will start. Anyway, they will never collide because currently how much we are utilizing that accounting part is available with the operating system. Okay. Now this diagram is important. If you understood what is meaning of this, you have understood at least 50% of the concept of process. That is important. So the text, data, heap, and stack. Any doubt? Somebody saying on chat. Repeat once again. Repeat once again. Okay. So you need this part. Now I just let me again show my program there. This program is visible, no? Now see, this is the global data. Even this phi is also data. This is the function. These are the parameters. V is a parameter. P and A, they are local variables. 10 itself is a data. Malloc, I need dynamic memory. Whenever I'm calling the function, maybe other steps are also there. Maybe we want to display and some other part of my program is also there. Okay. Now where each and every part will go. For example, this is the assignment. So definitely some sort of instruction is required. So that instruction is text. Here we are doing some sort of addition. So some instructions are required, instructions from the processor, right? So that is the text. This is global variable data. 5 is data. 10 is data. A is a local variable, so that needs stack. P is local variable, that needs stack. V is parameter, that needs stack. There is some written thing that also needs stack. And whenever we are switching from main to function fun, that also needs stack. Okay, got it? Now what is heap? That is the last part. Here, even though p is a local variable, there's a pointer variable, it will point to the additional space, which we may not know at compile time. Okay, so this runtime memory requirement of my program will be fulfilled with heap. So this is the heap part. Got it? So the text region, the data region, the heap region, and the stack region. Now, only part here is when we compile, we know what are the instructions required, how much space is required. When I say data, just looking at the program, I can say what are different data. So data is also possible, no doubt. But heap and stack, at compile time, we don't know how much space is required. And that is the reason there is no strict boundary between heap and stack. They will grow and shrink, which is not true in case of text and data. Got it? Is it clear? Of course, the example I have given is from the C language, but what exactly happens is we need to go through the executable file. But as we cannot see the contents of executable file, I have given example of source code file. Okay. I just given one poll. It will be for 10 seconds. Just go on responding. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. It is waiting for, still it is going on. Can you see the result? 108 participants are there, out of which 67, I guess, are present. And that is difference between the process and program, right? Those are active, though they have responded, and those are passive, just logged in and maybe wandering here and there. They are not, they are not responded. So we'll treat them as, because anyways I can now see the who have given the response and who have not. Maybe that will utilize for attendance purpose. Fine. So let me clear this. Okay, fine. Let me show the result of pollers. Fine. Now next, the state of process. This is one more important concept, especially whenever we have multi-programming, multitasking kind of a thing, then we need to understand the state of process. When process starts execution, it changes its state. and there are five states. One is new, meaning of this is the process is being created. It is not yet created. Okay. So because when we create the process, so many resources are required. And these resources include, very first resource, let me tell you, is process control block. Now what is there in that definitely we'll see, but right now remember there is process control block which we need to allocate to the process. So once that is allocated, there is an existence of process in the operating system, but still maybe it is not loaded completely. Maybe data part is loaded and stack is not loaded, or maybe text part is being loaded, something like so. Creation of process, it is going on. It is in process, right? It is going on. Such a process is in new state, not yet completely created. It is being created. Next is running. Running means, like in operating system, so many processes are there, and if we have single processor, right now only one process is being executed. See, this part is important. Even though I am saying processes are executed simultaneously or concurrently, the switching, the time slot is very, very less, and processor is switching from one process to other process so frequently that you get feel all processes are running simultaneously. Anyways, if you have multiple processors, then definitely they are running concurrently, no doubt. Okay. So now, which process is currently in running state? It is the process to which processor is allocated. That is the running state. Next is waiting state. Waiting is the state when process is waiting for some event to occur. Like one process may be waiting for other process, maybe one process is waiting for some sort of input output. And the simplest example is, say for example, let me move to, let me share. mm, okay, suppose this is a simple program in which I'll make it very, very small so that you will come to know the concept. So there is one variable called as a, scanf %d ampersand a, and then I just want to display something like printf a, whatever I read, equal to %d. That just I want to display. And let me say, for example, a is equal to 7, and just stop the code, return 0. This is my very small program. Okay, I just saved it. Now let me move to terminal and gcc 1.c. That is the compiler I am using. What happened? Semicolon missing. Let me save it again. Come down. By the way, can you see this? Okay. Okay. So gcc 1.c, and now how to execute is ./a.out. And now what is happening there? What is happening right now? Why it is not displaying that printf a is equal to %d? So I'm expecting a equal to 7 there. Why it is not showing? Why it is not showing? Reason behind that is actually it is waiting for taking the input. Yeah, Aditya, correct. Shubham is also saying read first. That means it is waiting for, right. Now say for example, I given something like 8. Why it is not showing 8? Because I just given input. The thing is I have not pressed enter 8. I need to press enter, right? So when I press enter, that is the event it is waiting for, right? So enter, actually it is end of input, right? So let me stop sharing. Here, waiting. The process is waiting for some event. Now this is just one example. It is waiting for input, right? Maybe one process is waiting for other process also. In order to start my execution, I need some sort of input from other. So that is also part. That is also part. Okay. That is the waiting. Process is waiting for something. Next one is, this is waiting, running, new. Next is ready. So actually this ready state, when process acquires all of the resources, such a process is called as it is in ready state. All of the resources required. Fine. Now what are those resources? Whatever the resources required by my process. Except one. Except one. And that exception is because processor, CPU is also one of the resource. So if we do not have the processor, my process is waiting there. It is in ready state. Okay. All the resources are available. It is ready. Next is the terminated. When process has finished its execution, maybe exit 0 is the last statement, or when main function executes return 0, then my process is terminated. So there are 5 states of the process: new, running, waiting, ready, terminated. And process will switch from one state to other state depending upon different events happening there. Okay, and those events can be depicted by state transition diagram. So this is the diagram of process state, or in other words, it is called as state transition diagram. When PCB is initially allocated, let me use highlighter. When PCB is initially allocated, this is the new state. Now all of the resources will be allocated. Process will be admitted. Now this is the, and process will go in the ready state. Process will go to ready state. So new, ready. Now here important thing is, when all the resources are available, it is not running. It is ready to run. It is just ready to run. Now from this state, this is incoming arrow, this is incoming arrow, this is incoming arrow, this is outgoing arrow. And this outgoing arrow is scheduler or dispatch. Anyways, we are going to see different algorithms for scheduling. Scheduler or dispatch is the module of operating system which will select one of the ready state and it will assign processor to it so that the process starts execution. Such a state is your running state. Now here we have all the resources except processor. In running state, we have processor also. So it is running. Okay. Now in previous programs, say for example, Execution starts from main, then it declared one variable int a is equal to 7, then it start executing scanf %d ampersand a. Scanf %d ampersand a. So it will call the scanf function, which actually suspends the execution of that process. I am saying suspend. So my process will be suspended. That is waiting for, this wait word is important. That is some event or some IO. Then, like for example, it never happened. My process is waiting for input. So processor is just waiting there. No, processor never wait there. Processor will think this process needs additional input externally, so it will switch from that process to other process, and that will be something like this. It will again select next from the ready queue. So from running, if that process is waiting for some event, we'll go to the waiting state. This waiting state is also called as a suspended. So that is another word also used for that purpose, waiting or suspended. Oh my, let me select another color because not visible. Okay, you call it as a suspended. Fine. So running program will be suspended because it is waiting for something to happen, some event to happen, maybe waiting for IO. This is not necessarily just IO or event, because there is another thing, something called as an interrupt. So for example, you imagine something like a time sharing system is there, where I mention about the time quantum. Some amount of time will be assigned to your process, and your process is not finished in that. So what happened is, when your turn is finished for that much time quantum, scheduler will select next process for execution. So what happens to your process then? So your process will be interrupted. Your process will be interrupted, and it will again go to the ready. So from running, there are three outgoing arrows. One is waiting for some input output. Maybe your process is interrupted. Now this interruption could be because of time quantum is expired, or maybe there is some high priority process become ready, and that has to be finished first. So that is a priority based scheduling. In that case, your process will be interrupted. So it will again move from running to ready state. That is fine. Now suppose it was waiting for some scanf kind of a thing, from some waiting for some input output, and if that input output is completed, that means it is available. So once that is available, it will don't go directly to running, because it was waiting for input output and input output finished and then it will go running. No, that is wrong. Only way to go to running state is through ready state. Always remember this. And here the scheduler works. So if your process was waiting for some sort of input and that input is completed, then your process again becomes ready. And then whenever scheduler selects your process, it will be running. If high priority process comes there, maybe your process is interrupted, so it is again going to ready. If that high priority process is finished and again your process is scheduled, then it will go from ready to running. And when it was running and when it executes the last statement of your program, exit, then my process will be terminated. Right? So new will be, your process will going through this new state only once, that is at the time of creation. Terminated, once it is terminated, you cannot come here. because all the resources, including PCB, will be released. And here your process may be switching between different states. So this is called as state transition diagram of your process. Fine? Any doubt in this? Now it is just 2 minutes are remaining. So rather than starting with new slide, let us take some questions. Yes, if you have any doubts, ask it on chat, or you can unmute and then ask the question. Not necessarily on this slide, but whatever the slides, whatever the things we discussed today. Just to summarize. Okay, Gnaneshwar Patil is saying something like infinite looping. I'm not getting infinite looping. What is it? Does it happen? Infinite looping, does it happen? Yes, it will happen. Sometimes your program goes into infinite loop. Say, for example, I have written a code while one printf hello. Okay, it is executing infinite. So it will be here only. It will be here only. Okay, then we externally or forcefully stop that. Okay, and maybe my running program will go to this one, exit. Anyways, that we'll see when we are discussing about the signal, wherein one process can send signal to other, and that signal could be terminate the process. So if process is not terminated on its own, maybe because of infinite loop, maybe because of logical error. Okay. Even though I just mentioned exit here, you think of something like you have written a program, infinite loop is not there, and your statement is C is equal to A divided by B. And say by mistake you entered value of B is equal to 0. So A divided by B means like whatever the value of A is, it is divided by 0 error. Okay. So if it is divided by 0 error, then again your program will be abnormally terminated. So not necessarily normal exit. It could be normal also. Don't think of this exit as an exit system call. Exit means running process will be exited either normally or abnormally by both the ways. Okay. Interrupt. Yes. Gnaneshwar Patil, I guess. He is asking about interrupt. What is this interrupt? Right? Interrupt is, say, for example, I'm executing the program, my process is running there. Okay. And because time is shared, multiple processes are running, and there is a time quantum, and whatever the time quantum assigned to your process is finished, then scheduler has to select another process for execution. Okay, so this is a software interrupt, kind of alarm, wherein your process will be stopped, or whatever the CPU allocated to your process will be taken away. So your process again goes back to the ready. Your process has to wait for processor. That is what the interrupt is. Aditya, in infinite loop, in which state this process is? If it is in infinite loop, that means it is running. So if my process is ready, it was running. So running. Maybe time quantum is finished, it will be interrupted, it goes to ready. Once again selected, maybe it is running. If it is some sort of IO, for example, I am taking input and then displaying, taking input and displaying, then if it is waiting for input, it will go to the waiting. So it will loop here. So it will not be in any of single state. Okay. So it will be in ready also, it will be in waiting also, it could be running also, doesn't matter. Anything else? Fine. So let us stop today.